Weedsnackers, it's me, Scott Diablo Marcano, and I'm here doing a great interview with a legend, a literal artistic legend in the world of comics and the world of cannabis culture. Sean Dietrich, who I met many years ago when we were both scrubs, just starting off. I think it was at the Portland Comic Con when we first met. Has gone on to do amazing things. If you're not familiar with Sean's work, he has done cannabis art for Zippo, OCB rolling papers, Genius Pipes, and he's also done some work for some other huge companies like Facebook, PlayStation, Pabst Blue Ribbon, Asahi Beer. He's the man. He is not only a nice guy, he is the hardest working man in show business. Literally, we'll get into that in a sec. Sean, it's so great to have you here with us today. How are you doing?
I'm good. This is a hell of an introduction.
Thanks. Well, you deserve it. Well, first off, Sean, I'd like to ask you a couple of things. Now, you do a lot of art for the cannabis industry, and you've gotten a lot of props for it. In fact, oh, look what I happen to have right here, right next to me. Look at this wonderful rolling dish that you gave me years ago for OCB.
Nice.
I absolutely love this, and yes, I have used it. If you're wondering, it's a great rolling
Better.
dish. Tell us a little bit about the artwork that you have done for OCB. How'd you get started in the cannabis, artwork industry? Just tell us a little bit about
Um,
that.
well, it's funny that that tray actually is a really good prop for this interview because that's kind of what started everything. As far as well, it was a milestone. It's not what started me in the industry, but it was I don't think a lot of people know like how big that tray, really is, and what it did for the industry. So in the cannabis industry, I got into it because I had a guy go into Spirit Printing, who does all my printing out of San Diego. He had a bunch of my prints. I think they were being run off for San Diego Comic Con that year, and he walked in and he saw them and he was like, "These are really cool. I like them." And he ended up buying two originals. And then he was like, he goes, "I have a spice company," if you remember that crap. And
Yes.
he said, "Do you want to do some packaging design?" And he goes, "I'd love to have you come live paint at my booth at the Champ Show." And this was like 13 years ago. So
Oh wow!
um,
So was Champs really small back then, Sean, or was it already big?
it was still pretty big. I mean, not where it is now, but it was a lot of booths. But it was really raw. Like when I went in there, the booths were some of the ugliest art, like 200 DPI, small little postage stamp art
Right.
trying to be blown up into backdrops. And I went, oh my gosh. I was like, my wife loves weed, smokes weed, loves this industry. We went out to Vegas, saw this show. I go, it seems like they're really hurting for art. I go, this might be a really cool industry to jump into. And I'll say this up front, I've never smoked weed in my life. It's just not my thing, but like my business partners and my wife smokes. And so that's kind of how I got into it. I really love the culture, because it is obviously insanely creative, if you go back to like the 60s and all the psychedelics
Oh
and,
yeah.
kind of on up. So yeah, I did that. Then Spice got banned and became a Class A drug, and
Right.
so I saw Dave, one of the owners at the Denver um, Cannabis Cup, and he saw my art and was like, "Hey, do you want to come in and set up a gallery?" So for the first few years, my buddy Vincent Gordon and I would have artwork set up, and then that was really what kicked off. Just kind of being in that industry, we had a lot of fans at that point. We had a lot of glass blowers that were buying art, and then OCB really was the first company that hit me up to do something kind of on a grand scale. I had done some pipes with Genius Pipe, but they were just like up and coming. And OCB is obviously a multi-billion-dollar company, so to kind of have them come at me and say, "Hey, we want you to do some poster art," to kind of continue their lineage from like the late 1800s and whatnot for like all the old job poster art that came out. They wanted to kind of continue that. So those rolling trays, that tray, to kind of bring the story back to that, I didn't know that was being produced. I went to live paint at ASD at OCB's booth, and they had all these boxes there, and I was like, "What are those?" And they opened them up, and it was that tray. And they were
Oh,
like, "Oh,
wow.
it's just a little novelty we're giving away." And I'm like, "No, I don't think you know what you started." I go, "Nobody's got fine art on their products. There's a pot leaf here or there, or some goofy drawing
Right.
somebody's 5-year-old drew, but there wasn't any like high-end fine art on products, back then. So when that tray came out, um, I think whoever was handling Snapchat or Instagram or whatever for them had like, some people wrote, sending some girls saying they'd send nude pictures to get one of those trays, and, and they were like, "Oh, this might
Were
be
they
something,"
sending you that? Or were they say, oh my gosh.
Well, they were saying it to the company, so no. Um, so and that's what I was like, yes, like, please pay attention to that. I go, because, and then from there it really took off. And, now everybody has art on their products, and everybody's so it was really cool to be there at the beginning and kind of kickstart that entirety of putting, high-end fine art and art that isn't, there's no pot leaves, there's no just cliche
No.
stuff. I really took the art in a direction where I just said, hey, the modern stoner is not, it's a doctor, it's a teacher, it's a guy with PTSD or anxiety. It's, not just Scooby-Doo. So I wanted to be
You
like,
make it.
these are intelligent people, so why not give them intelligent art?
Yeah, no, you really touched on a very interesting point there, Sean, that, cannabis culture really has become different. It's not just hippies sitting around looking for psychedelic art. It's everybody, and they can appreciate just good art in and of itself. And that's why I think your art has made such an impact. I mean, those trays and your artwork is so ubiquitous in the world of cannabis now. Can you tell us a little bit? Has your life changed, the success you've had in the cannabis industry? Did you suddenly find yourself being like sort of like the cannabis art rock star where people are like just all over you? Or how has it changed from the good old days when we were walking around Portland and we couldn't even afford a sandwich, either one of us, and we're doing those shows with our comics?
Well, next time I see you, I'll buy you a sandwich. I can afford one now.
You're so sweet, my
um,
friend.
yeah, it most definitely has. I've always had a very slow burn career, in the sense that I wasn't looking for, nor did I try and pursue like superstardom, or like, I kind of went more the Trent Reznor, David Bowie, like, yeah, they're famous and all that, and they went, but they paid more attention to their craft and making sure that what they put out was the best that they could do, or what they wanted to do. So I've never been pushed by anybody in a direction that I've not wanted to go in. Sure, I mean, like any aspiring artist back in the day, especially the Comic-Con days and whatnot, I drew some stuff I didn't want to, for money. But
Right.
everybody at San Diego Con wanted, can you draw me Boba Fett? Or, and it's like, I don't want to, but I'll take your money. Here you go. But as far as like, yeah, the Champ Show, yeah, everybody knows. I think most people who've been there a while, they know who I am and what I've done for the industry. And but it's always nice to get those emails and those texts that are like, holy shit, I'm in Canada, and I walked into a smoke shop and your products are there, or and they're like, you're getting this
Right.
realization that, like, through companies like AFG, who was one of the first distributors to jump in and help distribute my products, it got me into a lot of stores, and with OCB, I would go around to shops and do murals for them. And so it was nice to, you know, when it came out, it was really cool at Champs, because if you were at Champs, you knew every time that I was there, there'd be a new tray, or we'd sign and get, we had 500 people in line getting the second tray I ever released. Or so yeah, it definitely took off from there. And then uh, it just kind of continues to grow now. Now I'm working with Zippo and kind of helping their brand out with getting more into the cannabis industry and side of things, and putting cool art on Zippos. So yeah, it
That's
just
so
keeps
cool.
chucking along.
Now, your art, John, has always fascinated me because it's such a juxtaposition between beauty and, like, and for lack of a better term, like the grotesque or twisted or just dark.
Yeah.
Always able to bring these two things together. I'm just always being, I'm curious about two things. Number one, where does that come from inside you? A personal experience or taste? And two, what artists have influenced you? Because when I look at your art, even though it's profoundly Sean Dietrich, it's always reminded me a little bit of Ralph Steadman. So I was wondering if you could talk to us a little about where your art comes from, and also who's influenced you, who kind of gave you,
Sure.
gave you your own style.
So the quick list of artists: Norman Rockwell, Bob Ross. Bob Ross is how I
Ah.
learned to paint. Happy trees. I even have paintings at home. I'll never show you, but
I
they'll
want to
come
see
out
the
after
Bob
I'm
Ross.
dead. Like my Bob Ross oceans, and speaking of the grotesque, that's why I was drawn to Rockwell, because that's kind of what you're saying in my art is what I saw in Rockwell's art. I was like, this guy's painting like normal day-to-day life in a small town, but how his characters were kind of twisted and the poses they made and the huge Adam apples or the big noses or the accentuated ears, or he would always, like, the caricatures of those people were always what drew me. And I think a lot of it, because growing up looking at art, it's like all these old masters portraits of trying to do this perfect portrait of someone, and then you get uh Rockwell coming in and doing these grotesque caricatures almost. I mean, they look like you would actually meet these people, um and that really had a lot of effect on, I for the longest time, especially like right when Image Comics came out, I wanted to do superhero comics, and I had all sorts of superhero ideas, and then at that same time, I was starting to get into like Nine Inch Nails and Ministry and all this old early death rock, and watching 120 Minutes and Headbangers Ball on MTV, and seeing these just grotesque videos. And I was like, well, hell, I want my art to look like that. Like, how do I get
Right.
that grit and that texture? And so, it just kind of dawned on me where I was like, I don't want to do superheroes. I was like, it all looks the same. It was very mechanical back then, because everybody was like, oh, Image did it, we're all gonna put out our
Right.
books, and they all wanted to go that route. And I really didn't. I didn't have anything to kind of get into what inspires me from the inside. Nothing was pulling me in that direction from the inside. I'd just gotten out of high school, and I just started. I lived a pretty sheltered life in high school. I didn't skip school. I didn't. I just went home and drew every night, every day. I didn't go to parties. I wasn't
You
unpopular. I
were
had a lot of friends, but you
you were
know,
an art nerd, though. You wanted to do your art.
I was an art nerd for sure. It's just I knew what I wanted to do, and I knew it was that one thing that got me attention. It was one of them things where I wasn't really passionate or good at anything else, that where I was like, but this people pay attention to. So, and I think a lot of artists, they go down that path because of that. So, and then after high school, when I started going and partying in like DC and Baltimore and going to shows and seeing music and being like, there's this whole other world of just like dirtiness and filthiness and coolness. And, these people have metal in their face, in mass, and, like mohawks, and the punk scene kind of got into that. And I was like, all right, this is where I kind of want my art to go. Um, so kind of my early comics, like you've seen with Industricide, Fervor, Mess, and Catalepsy,
Oh yeah.
very kind of screwed up, very dark, very kind of brushing off the teen angst from high school and getting all
It's
that
a
out.
fever
And
dream period of your artwork. I mean, just
it,
I have those comics still. They're
yeah,
fantastic. Yeah, they're intense. They're really good.
I mean, Stephen Grant even gave Industricide a good review. And I mean, if you know that guy, that's pretty tough.
He hates
Like,
everything. He's the Mikey of comics. So
I met him
yeah.
for the first time last winter up at the Jet City Comic Con, and reminded him of that. I was like, "Hey, you actually gave my book a decent review," and he was like, "Cool," Like, um, and I always joke, and I forgot if I asked him. I should have. My family was there. I was kind of, but I always wanted to ask him where it was like, "Did you give it a good review because it was so weird that it might have been genius, and you didn't want to be the only guy in the room saying it was awful, or
Yeah, you
did
don't
you
want to be
mean,
the uncool guy.
Yeah, because I mean, it is. It was stream of consciousness, and it really was just like, um, how do you draw a comic that's purely based on passion and feeling, and like what music would make you feel like? How would that visually look like? And so that's kind of
Right.
where how I approached comic books, not like let's write a script and then put the art together. And so a lot of
You
it
let the
really, it
art
had a,
lead you. Yeah.
yeah, it had a base story, but it was very incohesive and very very tough to read. Very, I mean, I look at it now and I still see the beauty in it, but I also am like, who bought this and liked it? Like,
I'm
and
going to embarrass you a little bit because people
that's
think of
fine.
your art as being dark and and kind of edgy. But I want to show people this. This is, and you remember this? I got this
Fruits
to
of our
sign
labor,
at Comic
yes.
Con, and you
Well,
notice
my
that this
wife's
is
gonna laugh at
a
that.
children's book. It's you notice how frayed it is at the end. It's
Yeah.
teaching kids the ABC through all the characters are fruit, and my kids read this like 100 times. That's why it's so tore up and beaten up
Oh
because they
my
loved it.
gosh.
They all
Look how
learned to read
horrible
off of
the
the
art
same.
was back then.
You're responsible for the literacy of the Marcano family. I think people should look for
Sweet.
Fruits of Our Labor if it's still up on Amazon. This is one of my favorite things you did, and it's so different than your other stuff. But I love this
It's
book. I've always cherished this that you when you gave this to me at Comic Con. I wanted to
and
show
that's a
you remind you
real
how kind you were to give this to me.
that's a real banana peel on that cover too. So
Oh my gosh, it
I
is. Oh
didn't
my
know
gosh,
how
look
to
at it
do,
again.
yeah, I didn't know how to do really good text at that time, or
Uh
work with
huh.
Photoshop. So I just wrote on a banana and scanned it in and then put it on the cover. So I like collage, kind of mixed medium stuff like that. Yeah, so getting into the kids book was really cool because it was a darker kids book, but it was and then for the Stone Arch Books ones, and then that one was just pure. My wife and her friend wrote it, and then I did the art, and I did want to do something whimsical and kind of round out my portfolio. Um, and then obviously you can see up until my current artwork that is just like I always joke about. I finally bought the color pink and am using it. Like
So it's the
never
black and the
had.
brown and the darker
It
black.
is. I mean, the comic books were all black ink, and all the white is just scratched out with an X-Acto knife. I mean, that's how I did the highlights, and some of my original art has holes in it, like some of the comic art. So
Oh my
there's
gosh.
or burned on the edges, or I would light it on fire, or whatever gave it that grit and that feel, like the painting itself actually
Texture, yeah.
went through it. Yeah, like, oh, I picked this up outside a New York tenement building, and in a puddle. So kind of transferring what was inside me into that artwork and whatnot.
Have you ever
And
been drawn to do a skateboard art? And I'm asking this for a very selfish reason because I would love to have you do a Weedsnacks skateboard, and we'd love to pay you to do it. Have you ever done any skateboard art, Sean?
I'm doing it now. Actually, I have a couple custom boards that I live paint at the rock festivals that I do. Um,
Well, we'll talk
and then
about those
eventually
rock
I'd like
festivals.
to you know get them produced or start producing them. So for now, what I do is I'll paint some at the show. I'll usually have one that I auction off, as a raffle, for people who bought something, or uh, stopped by the booth and said what up. But eventually, yes, I'd love to have my own line of skateboards out. I think it'd be pretty cool.
I
It's
think
been
your stuff.
requested. Yeah.
Oh yeah, I'm one of the requesters. I think your stuff will look so good on a deck; it'd be unbelievable. I want to talk to you about the rock shows. If people aren't aware,
Cool.
you do Welcome to Rockville. You did the Bonaro Festival. You did Bourbon on it was
Bourbon and
Bourbon on
Beyond.
Boulevard.
Yeah.
Bourbon and Beyond. You do a lot of these shows, and that's when I say you're the hardest working artist in show business because you're constantly on tour. Tell us a little bit about that. Tell us about what it's like to be an artist on a rock show, and you have to be away from your family, I assume, for extended periods of time while you do this. But tell us
Yes.
about that experience of working with rock stars and being at these shows.
Um, it's awesome. For me, getting out to these music festivals is like the best way to sell art. It's expensive, for one. I mean, it is something I've had to build up over 13 years. Getting into festivals where we just paid a little. We were lucky enough to be able to just pay a percentage of what we sold, and then I met just some wonderful people. JP from Mosh It Up Clothing. He's the one that initially was like, "You need to hit up Danny Wimmer, who throws like the best rock shows in the United States," and that's Welcome to Rockville, Bourbon and Beyond, Louder Than Life, Sonic Temple, Epicenter, Rock on the Range, to name a few. But they're incredibly well run. The fan base is incredible. I mean, it's very like laser focused. I mean, I'm there, and it's like all the bands I listen to while I do my art, they're playing, and then here comes their fan base. So it you're not going to get a better symbiosis than that. It's like it's just meant to be. So and everybody there's having a good time, and it's like, and the art sells well and does well because it's something different. It's something that,
Yeah.
they're walking around and there's usual crap, and then there's 500 beers and 300 food trucks, and then but you get this experience where you walk up and you're like, oh, there's an artist and he's here, and so I can buy art directly from him. And but yeah, it's been an amazing experience. I believe this is my 12th or 13th year on the road. So
Are there
and
any
yes, a lot
good
of time, oh, go ahead.
What about the juicy stuff, the dirt about the time you partied with Tommy Lee and you were doing tequila shots off of some girl's village? That's the
uh
stories that the
there's
Weedsnacks
really,
fans.
honestly, I'm so anal about planning everything
Right.
that we haven't had too many stories like that. Now we do go out and party, yes, but I don't interact with the rock stars a lot. Like, basically I send stuff back to seed the green room, so ashtrays, rolling trays, papers, stuff like that. They'll
Right.
sometimes send their management out, like Judas Priest sent their management out to say they loved my art. Queens of the Stone Age, Eddie
Oh, that's
Vedder,
killer.
Stevie Nicks, just to name a few that have communicated to the hospitality manager that they really enjoyed the artwork back there. And so to me, it's really cool. I'm not a real kind of whore for, I got to meet everybody. It's I just like that my art's getting out there, and then if they send a kind word back or they appreciate it, I know how busy they are. I know how busy I am. It's not the time
Right.
to go back and be a fanboy, and but just that appreciation is there, and it is communicated through the hospitality managers. So um, yeah, the Tommy Lee tequila now hasn't happened. It's more me and some friends going and drinking whiskey and karaokeing and probably scaring everybody in the town, like, but,
So
I think
cool.
it's more on our end.
One of your most beautiful artwork things that you have done has been the Alice in Wonderland series that you did. We did all the characters from Lewis and Carroll and Alice in Wonderland, and you did it in that Sean Dietrich style. I was wondering if you could tell us just a little bit about how you became interested in doing the Alice in Wonderland series, because it's so great. Were you always a fan of Lewis Carroll, or where did that come from, Sean?
I have always been a fan of Alice in Wonderland. It's definitely been my favorite children's book because the characters were so, like, brutally honest and weird. They were unlike any other character. And one of the things I loved about the book was that there's no moral to the story. Like when Lewis Carroll wrote it, I read that he was like, why can't there just be a book that's nonsensical and entertaining for children? It doesn't have to have a moral to the story. And I'm like, yeah, why not?
Yeah,
That
why
seems
not?
great.
Right.
Like entertainment for entertainment's sake. Wow. I just, and they're all so unique, the characters are. And when I read the book, so Nate Murray, who used to be with IDW Comics, he has Red
Oh yeah.
23 Publishing now. So he is who hired me to do the Alice book. And yeah, that when he had asked about it, I was like, absolutely. I really want to dive into these characters. And I did research on 50, 60 editions that I could find the artwork for. And my goal was to do a more vibrant Alice in Wonderland. So a lot of the illustrations you see from other editions are very kind of tertiary colors, and even the Tim Burton one, there's always a dark storm in the background. I mean, that's Burton, but
Yeah.
and it kind of fit with the story. I got it. There was turmoil in Wonderland, but yeah, I just wanted to do like a very trippy, psychedelic, vibrant, but keep it very classic, like not, you know, Fear and Loathing in Alice in Wonderland, but like
That is the
um
perfect way to describe it. I think, for
yeah,
and again, there's thousands of pieces of Alice in Wonderland, Lewis Carroll style art out there. And it's been done
yeah.
some of the biggest artists in the world. Jim Henson did a whole thing about, Alice in Wonderland as well. Your
Mhm.
art to me really captures the spirit of those stories in such a unique way, almost more than any other interpretation I've ever seen. It was like you were born to do that art. And I was wanting to tell you that it's such a great job you did. And if
Thank you.
people watching this get a chance, I really would encourage you to go to your website and to buy some of that artwork if you're into Lewis Carroll and you like Alice in Wonderland, because it's exceptional. It really captures the spirit of the story. You did such an excellent job, Sean. Really impressive.
Thank you. Yeah, and we should have a second printing out. I'm thinking late November, early December. So we did sell out of the first print. There is prints on the website though. If you just like the artwork, I do have that available. So
One important question I had before we go, you mentioned young artists and you
yes.
mentioned, sort of talking to young artists. So I have two questions on this topic. One, what advice would you give to a parent or somebody young who's coming up who wants to be an artist and get started in the arts? Because you're a successful artist, a mega successful person who took his passion and his art and did it. That's question number one. And my second thing was, and this is from Thomas, when you got started in art, how did you
Hmm.
start? What did you start drawing? If you're a young artist, you want to draw faces and hands can be very difficult. How do you start as an artist? What should you start drawing in order to start honing your craft and discovering if you have talent?
Um, I would say for artists, like what I did is I drew what was fun. So I was
Uh-huh.
big into Mad Magazine and comics and stuff like that. So, and I knew I sucked ass at drawing people, in the beginning. So it was all characters and creatures and, you know, whatever monster trucks, dinosaurs. I was a huge dinosaur kid. So,
Right.
I still have a piece of art that I drew in kindergarten of a dinosaur with his head turned, eating some trees. And, it was, it's one of my prized pieces, and, yeah, just draw what you love to draw or what you like to draw just to get the practice. And then every so often, maybe go to a YouTube video, how to draw eyes, how to draw faces, how to draw, getting into more of what you want to draw and you want to learn, but you don't want to hammer yourself with a lot of this, like, it's just not coming
Over
out right.
technical, I
Yeah.
got to be
Which is,
perfect kind of thing right away.
which kind of falls in line with what I would tell parents. Cause when I was, 4 or 5 years old, my teachers were showing my mom like, oh yeah, he's good at English and math and whatever, no problem. But look at this, like his stick figures, they're not. They have clothes and they have arms with two lines, And so she said, okay. And so she took me to a friend of hers that was an artist. He used to do hand gold leaf lettering on books,
Oh
and
wow.
he told her not to force me into art classes unless I asked, and to just keep getting me art supplies. But if I did say, hey, I want to take it to the next step, I want to do this art class, I want to put them in, and just that kind of encouragement goes a long way. And I think, with artists worrying about, oh, I can't draw this yet, or what am I going to do, or where's my style, parents also worry, obviously, how are they going to make money off this, what does a career look like, just
Well, yeah, every
keep
parent's
doing
like,
it.
is my kid going to go broke,
Yeah, yeah, am I going to be paying for my kid for the rest of my life, like, but it's like, if you just keep building something, which I know is the exact opposite of everything people want to do today. They want that quick fix, quick career, quick money, quick
Right.
stardom. Sorry, but it's not going to happen. It's you burn bright, you burn short is the advice, or how I see it. You want longevity, you want to be Bowie, you want to be Trent Reznor of the music industry and the art world. That's years and years of, finding yourself, finding your style. And style does not come with just drawing. My style came because I lived in New Orleans for 3 years and I saw crazy shit. My style
Yeah, you'll
became,
see it down there.
came
Yeah.
because I put the time into, like, being very introspective and pulling everything out of my head and putting it on paper and going, what do I really want to do? What do I want to achieve? What does my career look like? What do I, not like the 5 year plan, but, where do I want to go with it? And if you just keep journals of that stuff, but you don't put a weight on it that is just crushing. You have to keep it fun. It's like, I think Bill Maher said something on his podcast about, or somebody had told him, because they were an older guest, and they said, how are you so spirited at your age? And he's like, I don't let the old man in. And it's
Ah,
like, it's a great
that's
line. And
great.
it's like the same thing I would tell artists. It's like, don't try and be an artist. Just, you already are an artist. You're drawing, like, to be a professional artist, once you put that, professional before it, yeah, that's where the money comes in and when you're going to have to start thinking about it as a career. But just keep, doing what makes you happy and keep making sure that it does make you happy, and just know that you don't know where you're going to be taken. So don't miss opportunities. I've never smoked weed. I'm one of the biggest artists in the cannabis industry. I mean, I never thought that would happen. I mean, that was just out
That's
of
crazy.
control, and but it's just it fits, and I love the industry, and I love the culture, and it just works, and I have a lot of great friends in that industry, and they're all dying to smoke a joint with me, but maybe when I'm 70,
Sean, we're gonna wrap it up here, but a couple things. I
Sure.
want to thank you for doing this. And also, I want everyone to know where you're gonna be, where can they find your art, all that good stuff. Because I know you made a lot of
Sure.
fans, and when this video airs, there's gonna be a lot of people who don't already know you who are gonna want to find you.
Sure. So the big thing, Sean Dietrich, Sean spelt the right way, Dietrich spelt diet rich. Easy way to remember it. And I'm not the red bearded dude who writes about fried green tomatoes and sipping iced
Oh,
tea in
Sean of the
Alabama.
South? Yeah, you're not
Oh
that
my
guy.
God, that guy, when he came onto the scene, I felt like Michael Bolton in Office Space, where he was so pissed that Michael Bolton got famous. So I got
Dude,
this other Sean
everything is
Dietrich
Sean
out
of the
there.
South. Sean of the South.
Yeah, and I'm such Sean of the East. Like, I grew up outside Baltimore. I'm East Coast through and through, even though I live on the West Coast. But it's like, it's almost like an arch rival thing. I've never met the dude. I have no ill will towards him. When his fans write me, I give them like sweet responses. No, I won't come speak at your daughter's like graduation or whatever and have tea or. But I do get weird requests like that, and I'm like, oh, you're looking for that guy. So it is on social
Just
media. Social, like Sean Dietrich at Sean Dietrich is my Instagram. Sean Dietrich Art is my website. As far as where I'll be this weekend, I'm at Bourbon and Beyond in Louisville, Kentucky. The following weekend, I'll be at Louder Than Life. We'll have a booth at Riot Fest in Chicago. My buddy Brian's running that. September 29th, I'm going to be at the Botany Bay Smoke Shop in Kentucky doing a meet and greet. It's a really cool shop that I did a 50-foot by 2-story mural on the side of the building last year. And then on the Alice in Wonderland front, September 30th, I will be in Cleveland, Ohio, at the annual meeting of the Lewis Carroll Society, giving about an hour speech about what it's like to tackle Alice in Wonderland as a project. And then October 6th through 8th, I'll be in Sacramento at Aftershock, which is the big rock festival out there. And then
that is so
I have
awesome.
some pretty cool secret shows coming up. September 24th in Redondo Beach, I'll be at Punk Rock and Paintbrushes. My friend Emily runs a very cool collective, and my art will be on display with like Dave Navarro and Chad Smith and some of the other guys, band members that do artwork is also. So she has a bunch of cool people. Johnny Cash's granddaughter, I think, is another one of the artists she represents. And it's a really cool collection of artists that she's put together. And
That sounds awesome. Hey, when are we going to
yeah,
get you in Albuquerque? We need you in New Mexico. You got to come by Weedsnacks Central so we can turn you into
oh
one of our
yeah,
Weed Snack minions. So if you're ever in Albuquerque, you let us know. We'd love to have you.
yeah, I definitely will. My buddy Steven from Genius Pipe lives down there. I actually try and get down there at least once a year and see him. But yeah, if you guys are in Albuquerque, I'm down. I love Albuquerque. I've had some fun there.
For sure, John. If you're ever in town, please let us, or coming anywhere near us, in the state, you're coming to Santa Fe or anything, please let us know. We would love to have you again as a guest. You've been a wonderful interview. We love your artwork. We're gonna twist your arm. We're gonna get something out of you sooner or later because we love
For
what you do.
sure, I'm in. Yeah, definitely.
Let's go, Sean. We really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for doing the interview with us. And best of luck out there on the road. Keep doing great art, keep blowing people's minds, and keep doing great, all the stuff you're doing. You have the greatest attitude, and it's just been a pleasure to talk to you, Sean.
Thank you. I appreciate you guys having me. And yeah, day jobs don't agree with me, so I'll be out there on the road. Come see me.